Welcome to From Loneliness to Overflow with Matina. I'm your host, a holistic healing coach, divorce recovery coach, and a passionate advocate for personal growth and your guide on the journey to healing. This podcast is for those who are struggling with the feelings of loneliness, disconnection, feeling stuck, and who are ready to discover their inner potential and live a life overflowing with love and connection. Inside, we're going to explore the path from pain to transformation, bridging the gap between loneliness and abundance through heartfelt conversation, spirituality, energy work, and self-awareness. So let's get started on this soulful journey together. Welcome to another episode from Loneliness to Overflow with Matina. Today's guest is really truly going to show us how the connection with ourselves is going to empower you all around. Her story is no different. From her loneliness moment to the overflow that she is living in right now, to sharing that work with the world is such a beautiful blessing. Welcome, Leah MacLellan, and it's absolutely a pleasure having you here today. Please share more about you for our listeners.
Thank you, Matina. My name is Leah MacLellan, and right now what I do, who I am inspired to be, is in service to others. I am a co-owner of a yoga studio in Jacksonville Beach, Florida, and I have, over the last couple of years, brought in new practices to what you would generally find at a yoga studio. I teach breathwork now. I facilitate breathwork, and I try to take our clients on a really inspiring journey into themselves and into their heart space, opening up in a little bit of a different way than the general 60-minute yoga class will allow, although those are hugely beneficial. The space that I'm starting to open up for people is something a little bit more than many of us make time for in our everyday lives, and it's something a little bit more than we really know to do. We're often taught to sit in a meditation or, take on various practices to get to know our inner selves or to make space for ourselves. And this is a guidance into that journey that is, I think, much easier than sitting on a stool meditating. It allows for the mind to quiet. It allows for us to see all of the things that are going on just beneath the surface of our heart and our body. And it allows us really to start to see and envision what it is that we want for ourselves, what it is that we want for our lives. And, as kids, I think we know so much. We play and we're joyful, and we, on any given day, there's all kinds of things that we want to be and do, and all kinds of things that we can see for ourselves. And as we get a little bit older, I think we can get caught up so much in the things that we feel like we have to do, so much in, checklists and taking care of things. And, over time, we really start to forget what it is that sets our soul on fire, what it is that makes our heart happy, and really, what it is that we are here to do, to live into a bigger purpose, what it is that we are capable of, and all of the things that are possible. So I'm really, although I teach the yoga and I teach the breath work, really for me, it's about creating a greater vision for ourselves and giving ourselves permission and joy in stepping into fulfilling that space for ourselves. And it's been really exciting. In addition to doing the work within the studio, I've stepped out into areas with first responders. I've done some work with veterans. I've started working on private coaching, and it is so fulfilling to watch people unfold into their greater purpose. It's so fulfilling to see the aha moments and to share those with people as they think, whoa, this is actually possible for me, that, whatever the dream is, whatever the vision is that has been lingering, that may have been forgotten. There's just so much joy in sharing that with people as they start to open up to more of themselves.
Oh my goodness, there's so much that I can step into and ask about with that share alone. But one thing you said, your real big vision is really allowing others to see their own expanded vision, their own joy, their own happiness again. When we land on something grand like that, there's always a backstory. There's always an experience that we've had that led us to experience and go through that path of our own life and journey so that we're like, oh my God, this is possible for me. It's possible for others too. So let's go dive deep into Leah's world. So when you look back at your own life, what was your pivotal moment where you realized, like, I'm not that joyous girl that I was once, and I'm now literally the mom or the wife or the employee or even the business owner, and I'm literally just ticking off all these check marks. Like, what was that pivotal moment of loneliness or disconnection for you?
Yes. Well, for me, it began in my early 30s. And after college, I wasn't quite sure what to do. So I knew that I wanted to help people. I knew that well-being and overall health, I know that mattered a lot to me. So I went into my master's degree and I went into public health. I did the work. It was exciting. I was very interested in what caused us to not be in our well-being, whether that was through disease or whether that was through various economic issues, cultural issues, all kinds of things that contributed to I don't know if it's holding us back, but in our own minds, holding us back. The things that were contributing to our sickness, the things that were contributing to dis-ease, those kinds of things. So I went into public health and I liked that and I stuck with it. I went on to receive a PhD in epidemiology and I worked in the field for some time doing research and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. But once it was time to really take that work to the next level, I started feeling a little bit lost. I started to realize that although it was important work, I didn't feel like I was making an impact. I didn't feel like all of the research that was happening was really impacting the quality of lives for people that I knew was possible. And at the same time, I was involved in my own journey, a lot of meditation, a lot of reflection. At the time, I was reading A Course in Miracles, and I just started to recognize, so much more is possible through this other way that we haven't really been taught in our society. Through modes like meditation and the connection to spirit. And so I started to feel like there was a big difference between that understanding and what I was actually doing with my time with all of the research. It felt just like kind of a gap. And also around that time, I started having children and I made a big move. I was living in Baltimore and then moved to Jacksonville, Florida. And I taught a little bit at the local university here and still I couldn't quite find my joy, couldn't quite find my way. I was really busy with 3 young children. My husband was traveling at the time and I started to get sick a lot. I had a lot of manifestations in my body. I was diagnosed with thyroid issues and then I was diagnosed with parathyroid issues and I had surgery and then I had a really bad back and it was just really limiting a lot of my mobility. And this went on for years. I ended up having back surgery and I would say there was a good 8 years. I had back surgery on my 40th birthday. And that was a big moment for me where I was just like, what am I doing? I'm forcing something. I'm forcing myself to live into a life that I thought was the right life for me. But it wasn't. I wasn't joyful. I wasn't happy. There was something else inside of me that wanted to come out. But I also felt a lot of disappointment, shame, and embarrassment. I was really afraid to tell all of the people in my life that had identified me with my career that I didn't really want to do that. I didn't really want to be that person. And so it was a long time. It was, I was kind of dealing with the fact that I had dedicated, so much time to school and my career for something that I didn't want to do anymore. So it took me a long time to come to grips with all of that. And about a year after my back surgery, I finally went into my first yoga class. And I just started to hear things that resonated with me and it just felt amazing. And so I kept going and I quickly joined a teacher training program and that really started to open me up. And I just kept practicing. I started teaching and it felt better. It felt better and it felt more aligned with what I wanted. And that went on for 5 years or so. And then
So I'm
a
gonna
partner and
stop you there because there's
go ahead.
so many
Yeah.
nuggets there.
Yeah.
You already shared from your body was really going against you, showcasing you like whatever you're doing, please stop. Your body was already giving you the signs and giving you the signals like this is not your happy place. This is not your place of growth. Now, that doesn't mean that it was wrong.
No.
It means that for that time period, it was great. It was the right thing to do. But we so often forget as adults that we're allowed to change our minds.
Yes.
So what you're sharing right now, what I'm hearing at least, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is you had to come to terms with the fact that you were okay to change your mind. Your family, your direct colleagues, and everyone who would be impacted directly would be okay with Leah making a different choice. But it's so often the conversation we have in our mind, which 80% of the time is not positive, and the fear and the shame that you shared as to what they would think and how they would perceive you, that it stops so many of. So tell me more about that conversation in your mind where you felt the shame, where you felt the disappointment. And then when you eventually took that leap of faith and stepping into something new, how was that perceived? And how did that showcase you that, oh my God, what I thought was different than what actually happened, if that's the case?
Yes. Well, it was a slow process. It was a number of years that I went through that reckoning. And what I see now is that I had to allow myself permission to have a bigger vision for myself, to have a bigger dream. And I realized we are taught that we should be grateful for what we have.
Yes.
And we should always have gratitude and be grateful for what we have. But on the outside, I had everything. I had a beautiful family. I had a loving husband. I had a beautiful home. You know, we had everything that we needed. We
The
got to
checklist was
travel.
done.
Yes, the checklist was done. We got to do things that we loved. But what I realized now is I was denying myself the bigger vision that I wanted for myself, because the boxes were all checked, but I wasn't allowing myself to dream into something bigger. And so, you know, there were times where it did feel very lonely. It felt sometimes selfish. You know, why would I ask for more when I had so much already? And so it was a reckoning around that too, giving myself permission to really live a life of joy when I knew that so many people were living a life of really hard work and maybe struggle, you know, and those kinds of things. So it's been,
Leah, sorry to cut you off there. Like in that moment where you were reckoning with yourself and your own thoughts, did you know in that moment that that's what you were going towards, that bigger vision, or were you just searching?
I was just searching. This is hindsight. This is hindsight. And so, but I do think that's the thing that propels us, right? Even though we may not have a name for it, or we may not know where we're going. It's this inkling that there's something more, something more that is calling us. And so, you know, and a great indicator of that is that we're having trouble finding our joy, or, you know, even though we have, you know, something that could be joyful on the outside, we're just not really feeling it on the inside. And I think that, you know, we can eat healthy, we can meditate, we can do all of these things for ourselves. But unless we're listening to what's in our heart, it can be really complicated to feel that joy and fulfillment that we're here to feel. So I did go through that process for many years. And what I find now, it's a continuing unfoldment that we are here to expand. And so much of my joy is in that growth process. It's in that expansion. So I've been, So where I'm at now is that is just, I'm allowing that to unfold all of the time. It was, you know, through my studio, and now it's working outside of my studio, and just really continuing to unfold and expand into where life takes me. And that is really exciting for me. That's really exciting for me to share and deliver, you know, that this is possible, because I know that, you know, so many of us live our lives in this small box or a small container that we allow ourselves to live into. And it also feels very safe in those containers. So it can be
It's known.
scary.
It's known. And we're creatures of habit. So we want things that are known. And
Yeah.
what you shared earlier is like, okay, so your pivotal point in your shift into your overflow was yoga first.
Mm-hmm.
And you also said in the beginning that you are now breathwork facilitator.
Yes.
So how did that journey from doing and going and joining a class to expanding how you made yoga so personalized and a different experience for the people that you get to serve?
Yes. Well, for me, it's continuing, it's ongoing. But a couple of years ago, I started feeling that gnawing sensation, and I'm lucky now because I've started to recognize when that sensation comes up for me, it's time for action, right? It's time for exploration and for expansion. I start to recognize that. So I felt that a couple of years ago very strongly. As happy as I was and as wonderful as everything was around me with the studio and our clients and the growth of our business, it was wonderful and extraordinary. And I felt like, wait a second, I know this feeling. There's something more. There's something more that I'm here to do. So I went on a retreat. I went on actually a number of retreats around that time. I just felt like it was time for me to jump out in the world and explore a little bit more. So the first retreat was a yoga retreat, and it was wonderful. It was in Mexico, and it was just exciting. I just felt myself come alive. It was really exciting just to travel and be on a journey and feel free. Soon after that, I went to a plant medicine retreat in Costa Rica, and it was ayahuasca. And it was the first time I had ever experienced anything like that. That was the beginning of an entirely different type of journey for me that I thought I was doing. And I was doing a lot of work. I've meditated every day for years and years and years. You know, I was really in that work.
Mm-hmm.
And I had my yoga practice, but this opened up something completely different for me. At this retreat, I experienced breathwork for the first time. And when I went through the breathwork journey and as well as the ayahuasca journeys, I just felt parts of myself that I never knew existed. I felt myself on a much deeper deeper level. And I realized how much there was going on inside of me, that so much pain, so much, you know, I use the word trauma loosely because I know it applies to everyone differently, but so much that came up that was needed to be seen by me. So much, you know, from my life, from relationships, from fears. So much came up for me that just needed to be seen, acknowledged. And I realized also through those journeys how separate I was from myself. I was really lacking in self-love. And that was a real awakening for me to see that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was able to, over the course of the next year, just really dive deep into self-love practices and, you know, seeing myself as a young girl, seeing myself as a teenager, and recognizing the times of loneliness in those moments, you know, the times of feeling not good enough, the times of being afraid, you know, for my voice to be heard, or you know, the times I was afraid to speak my truth. I really went through a lot of self-love work, just kind of in reparations of my relationship with myself.
Yeah.
And you don't have to go to an ayahuasca retreat to do that. The amazing thing about breath work is that gives us access to our inner selves.
Mm-hmm.
And we get to see through the power of our breath and through the intelligence of our body, what are the places, where are the areas inside of us that are hurting. And we get to recognize too that the way to healing is through ourselves. You know, a lot of forgiveness work and things like that, we feel like those things have to happen outside of us, but we have all of the power inside of us to forgive ourselves, to love ourselves, you know, to really see ourselves and hear ourselves. And that is the journey that I've really been on for now a couple of years, and why I feel like it's so important to facilitate the breath work and to share this with my community and beyond, because it has given me so much. Once we start to see ourselves and to realize that we have this relationship with ourselves, that we are able to acknowledge ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
we are able to forgive ourselves, we are able to say, hey, I see you. And I am so sorry for the times that, you spoke up, you knew that something wasn't right, and I turned my back on you and I didn't listen.
Mm-hmm.
But now I'm here and I see you and I trust you and I know you. I mean, just that process is so incredibly powerful in allowing us to step into really a whole different dimension of life.
Right,
Yeah.
Chelsea, as you're speaking about it, because it is, and self-love means different things to different people, right?
Mm-hmm.
It is more than taking a day off. It's more
Yeah.
than going to a spa or having your hair done. While all of these things can be a part of it,
Mm-hmm.
it's not the external, it's the internal.
Yeah.
It's the internal journey. And that is really what you're sharing. And while you've had such an amazing, beautiful journey from the moments where your body was going and showcasing you, like, okay, stop, please stop. Something is not right here. We need to do something different. To
Mm-hmm.
stepping into yoga, starting to listen to yourself, slowing yourself down, becoming okay that there's something bigger calling to you that hasn't fully emerged yet. But that's the journey that we're all on, that we all are exploring from and learning from, to going on these beautiful retreats and experiences with community, with yourself, and recognizing which of these tools speak to you.
Mm-hmm.
Because yoga is a tool, breathwork is a
Yes.
tool.
Yes.
And there's so many people who have not experienced or think of it as something like, yeah, that's something I do sometimes, or that's something I get into sometimes. Or yeah, I do go in my yoga class as well as my mind is also racing through all of the to-dos that need to happen.
Yes.
And there's no shame in really acknowledging that, because that too, and I can say that from a certainty, must have been a part of your journey too, to really, in the beginning, calm your mind, get into the place, get physically and mentally and emotionally aware of that present moment that's in front of you.
Yes.
And as you now step into the yoga center that you have, showcasing breath work and incorporating breath work with yoga and doing it in your own unique way, how is that showing you that larger vision that you talked about? Before we continue, I would like to offer you something special. If you desire to deeper, more meaningful connections in your life and are looking to improve your relationships with yourself and others, it is time to make a change. I'm inviting you to join our Deepening Connections through Meditation group. Imagine improving your relationships through meditations that foster understanding and growth. Check out matinasingh.com/meditation for more details and use the code GROWTH for an exclusive discount. Now let's get back to our soulful conversation, helping you on your journey of self-awareness and connection.
Well, so breath work is incredibly powerful in that if I'm facing a challenge in my life, if I'm in a position where I feel stuck, or if I'm in a position where I feel the pull for expansion, breath work will always take me back to a core moment and kind of like point me inside to the answer. And it does this in such a unique way. I've realized that the patterns that we have in our life, they're on repeat. And so if I'm experiencing something in the present moment, and I lay down to do a breathwork session, inevitably, my breath will take me to a place in the past where I can see clearly the situation that I'm in currently, right? Like, because it's a repeat. It's a repeat of something from the past.
Yep.
And when that happens, I get to make a correlation, and I also get to see, okay, what is it that I want? I see where I'm at. I see what's going on. And I get to ask myself, what is it that I want? Because the breath shows us the patterns in our life. It shows us where we hold back. It's a very powerful tool to use to also be able to ask, what is it that I want for my bigger vision? And these answers, they don't come from concept. They don't come from our head. They come from what's in our heart.
Yes. So true.
So if you give yourself the time if I give myself the time in the breath work, inevitably the visions of the things that I want for myself, they show up. And so the work that I do now, especially in my private coaching, is I use the breath work as a tool to invite people and engage people to write a vision for themselves. And I really just stress there are no limits on this vision. Take the time, write a vision for what it is that you want. If you could have anything in the world, what would it be?
Yeah.
What would it be? And if we take the time to take ourselves into a centered space through the breath, the things that come out are so aligned with what is in our heart. We don't have to worry that it's taking us down the wrong path or anything like that. We're really building a trust up with ourselves and trusting that what comes forward is for our highest good and our highest alignment. Now, we don't always love what we see. There's times when, it may be that it's time to move away from something that feels safe.
Yeah.
Or it's time to, end a toxic or tumultuous relationship, or, those kinds of things also come up. It's time to have a difficult conversation with somebody. That has come up for me before, but it's always in alignment with what is best for us. And it's always the step that needs to be taken to open up to the next part of our vision, the next part of our path.
It's so true that we are faced with the things that we don't really are ready to see. And I heard something so beautiful this morning, which was, it's better to be at a very hard place or a very joyful place, but nothing in between, because the in between is contentment. It's in between. It's like, this marriage isn't really working for me, but there's no real reason I want to leave him, because there's no abuse. It just doesn't work for me, but it's okay. Or this job isn't working for me, and I'm not growing, and I want something else, but I'm so scared to do something else, and it just works out. It's fine. I'll stay. So when we are in this hardship of, oh my God, this is not working, we need to get out, we need to find an answer, we'll act. And when we're very, very happy, but we are so driven, which you're actually sharing, when we're so driven with our bigger vision, then we just are in action. We're just doing those things naturally, inspiring ourselves into action because it is so in alignment with what we want. But this in-between place, it's so difficult. It's so difficult to tell yourself that, no, what you're feeling is valid. Because we are trained, and this is my belief, we're trained to look at the world from the external view, but not from the internal view. And when we're always looking at the world from the external view, it is teaching us, my husband wants this, so I'm going to do that. My children need that, so I'm going to help out. My parents want this. My work expects this of me. So you're always fulfilling pieces of you other places. But when we don't take the time to assess and step into your own body, your own beingness, do yoga, do breathwork, do whatever tool serves your heart and soul and gives you that joy and that spark to the overflow, absolutely follow that. But the in-between place, make a choice.
Yes, it's true. And, what I see with many of the clients that I work with is that they've been living in that space. And I did it myself. We live in that space until it becomes too uncomfortable to live there anymore.
Yes.
It's human nature to stay in that space until it just becomes too uncomfortable to live there anymore. And that's a great place to celebrate. It really is. Yes. And, I'm thankful now that I get to see that when I feel that or when I recognize that in someone else, I am celebrating because I'm like, yes, it's time. Yes. And we're here to expand. It's the soul's path is expansion. And so, when we get to that space where we've been in that middle ground for so long that it becomes uncomfortable to stay anymore, that's like really special, because then you either have to make a hard choice. Well, generally it starts as what feels like a hard choice. You have to feel crappy to move out of your hard choice. Then you get to open up to something so beautiful for yourself. And it's a muscle. It's a muscle that we build, that listening and that knowing, am I in a space that serves me right now? And I know all of this can sound, it can sound very self-serving, but that's what we're here for. We must choose for ourselves. We must live into the fulfillment of ourselves. And when we do that and we have that, we are so much better at service beyond ourselves.
And it directly impacts your environment. It expands your environment, the people around you also. Yes. They're going to be either triggered by you doing something that they're not.
Yes.
Or they're going to be like, what are you on? What are you doing that I need more of too? Because you have both of them, right? And it's fascinating that you're mentioning that you celebrate your clients, the people that you get to work with, who are at that pivotal point of recognition that that's what they need to do and that's where it's come to. Whereas in reality, and you share that for yourself too, is we get so hard on ourselves. I did not do this earlier. Or what is missing? What have I done? And you get so bogged down with that conversation in your head that it's like, no, stop. My goodness, what a beautiful gift that you gave yourself of recognizing this now. Yes. All the little steps that you did before were getting you ready to actually take action now. So it's perfect. It's not, there's no shoulda, coulda, woulda in this. This is the perfect timing for you now to expand, to step into, to allow yourself that bigger vision and allow that vision to pull you into that. Oh, I love what you do.
Oh, it's great because, and you can't hold that vision. We literally cannot hold these visions for ourselves until we're ready. And so it's like, you have to get to that breaking point. You have to get to the point where you're on your knees saying, I can't do this anymore. I don't want to live like this anymore. And then that is a celebration because then you're ready. You're ready to hold a bigger vision for yourself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh my God. Leah, it's been absolutely a pleasure having this conversation with you and for you sharing all of these beautiful nuggets from your own loneliness moments into your overflow. Now, we have a tradition on this podcast that I happily have borrowed from the Diary of a CEO from Stephen Bartlett, which is we ask you a question that the previous guest has left. And at the end, I'll ask you the question that I will ask the next guest as well. So the question that I have for you today is, it's an interesting one. You are not who you think you are. Who are you?
Well, I feel like I've been fortunate because breathwork has shown me many times, although I am in this human container, I am so much more. I'm everything. I am the earth. I am the stars. I'm the elements. I'm the air. I'm the water. I'm all of it. I'm all of it. I'm the light. I'm all of it. And it's a really beautiful experience to be able to embody that feeling, that sensation, knowing that at my core, I am not separate from anything that I see.
That's a beautiful answer. It's this, what you shared just now, Leah, it's expansion. That's the words coming up for that right now. How powerful that you allowed yourself to step into going from where you were and making the uncomfortable choice and finding your path, discovering your path, being on the journey of discovery, and now leading other people to their beautiful big visions. So for anyone who feels intrigued with Leah's story and wants to learn more about her beautiful work that she does, all of the links will be in the descriptions and you can reach out and really just get to know her more. It's been an absolute privilege to having you on and you sharing your loneliness moment into the overflow that you're living today. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Matina. It's been a pleasure.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for listening. I hope this episode has helped you to feel less alone in finding tools towards a life which is overflowing with love and purpose. If you enjoyed the episode, please take a second to rate and review. Each review helps us to reach more individuals who are seeking healing and personal growth just like you. And don't forget to take a screenshot and share your aha moments on your Instagram stories and tag me, Matina. See you next week. Take care.